super pumped up for the day. This is interesting because Kev and I, every guest speaker we've had on the show, we've met in person or we're friends with them. And this one, I think it adds another exciting level for both of us because we don't know too much about this guy.
Right.
At all, other than the fact that we know he's killing it. I have him on Instagram and, you look up some things on when you just type in the word insurance, I feel like his name gets brought up. So we're on with Ryan Hanley today. He's got his own podcast called The Hanley Show and just so much going on in his life that he already started talking to us about. So excited to hear from him, learn from him. And Ryan, how we living, man?
Dude, we're good. Life is good. And, it's funny. I've done so many I've been podcasting since 2011 and I've interviewed so many people. I always love when I get a chance to be on the other side of the mic because you just, you get so used to asking questions and stuff. You never, it's fun to kind of be on the other side and not know what the question's going to be that you're going to get asked. It's always fun. So I'm happy to be here and excited to share.
We're going to have to ask him, like, he's such a veteran at it. Like, what are some great questions he's had that he asked his guests?
Like when we had Kitajima on, it's like he was interviewing us. We had this guy, farmer's agent, well known, and he started interviewing us like 10 minutes through. We're like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Some podcast hosts do that because they're just so used to it. And it's funny. I've had people on who've tried to do that to me when I was the guest. And to be honest with you, and they wear it like a badge of honor. You know what I mean? They're like, oh, I've interviewed so many people. I just ask questions. And I'm like, yeah, except they had you on the show to ask you questions. So you're kind of almost being, and I'm not saying this guy was doing that. I'm not trying to knock him. Yeah. It's funny to me. Like they wanted to ask you questions and you spun it around. Like maybe you should just stop asking questions and answer what they have. But happy to answer. I'll be honest with you. I'm a pretty terrible podcast host in the formal sense. There's courses that you could buy and ask this question and 5 things here and templatize this. And to be honest with you, I don't do any of that. I bring interesting people on, I listen to them, and then I ask questions. I don't have, to me, it's all about just active listening. And what would I want to know next? When I see someone who has pre-recorded questions down, I'm like, what are you doing? What if that thing that you're about to ask them is not what they want to talk about today? So I think our job as podcast hosts is to get the most value out of the person that you're speaking to or people that you possibly can. That's their job. And today, you guys, let's say you did have a whole series of questions you wanted to ask me, right? And it was about content marketing or something, right? And I just don't want to talk about that. In my mind, I have 10 leadership things going on in my head. I'm dealing with people or something happened. And man, what really has me lit up right now is leadership. And you keep drawing me back to content marketing. What you're going to get out of me is template, pre-recorded answers that I don't really care about because what I really want to talk about is leadership. So the way I frame my job as a podcast host is to figure out what's burning in your brain today and pull that out, even if it's not what I originally wanted. And I've had episodes where I've gotten to the end and I've gone, the reason I had you on the show, we didn't even talk about, which is great because I'm going to have you back on the show in 4 months. How about that? And everybody says yes to that. And then you just have the person on again. So I don't do if someone were to try to create a course around the way that I do podcasts, it would be infuriating. It's basically one thing, just actively listen and be curious.
Well,
all right.
Let's start there. How did you get into podcasting in the first place? And tell us a little bit about you for our listeners who...
Wait a minute. Maybe he doesn't want to talk about that.
Well, we'll see. I was looking at his facial reaction, and I wanted to see if that's what he wants to talk about.
what's burning. I think it sounds like leadership to me, Jeff.
No, it's probably not. I don't know. That was just an example. Well, I'll give you guys a 10-cent tour. So I got in the insurance industry 17 years ago. It was basically the dowry for my ex-wife's hand in marriage. Her father owned an independent insurance agency here in the greater Albany area. And I was working for American Express at the time in New York City. And it was kind of a desk job that, whatever, it paid okay. But I was a number. I wasn't even a name. I was M1K8, whatever. That was, because there was 5,000 people in the building that I was in or some enormous number. I can't even remember. And So when we decided that we were going to get married, my father-in-law pulled me out of a Christmas party, pulled me into this, like, this is like out of a mafia movie, wood paneled walls and high leatherback chairs in this office in his house, and his son, who also worked at the agencies, like standing over his shoulder, and they kind of made me an offer I couldn't refuse. And frankly, sales was interesting to me. I had done corporate jobs. I'd been a consultant. I liked the idea of a career where, as hard as I could work and as good as I could be, I could get paid that amount of money, if that makes sense.
Sure.
So said yes, and realized very quickly that I was terrible at it. And 18 months in, he called me into his office and tried to fire me. Technically, he did fire me. And I, like any self-respecting young man would do, got down on my knees and begged him to not have to go home to his little girl, because we were married at that time, and have to tell her that her dad fired me. And he agreed, thankfully. So, but I knew something had to change. I'd put 50,000 miles on my car. I'd been to every strip mall within 50 miles. I had cold called. I had done all the things in a classic sense. And this is like 2008, probably.
Oh, wow.
2007, 2008. And it just didn't work for me in doing it that way. I felt like I was interrupting people. I felt like I wasn't adding value. I didn't understand. And today I could do probably all those things and it wouldn't even faze me. But at that point, I just couldn't get past it. And it's when, that's when I found digital marketing. So I just said, man, there's people on LinkedIn. There's mortgage brokers I'd love to work with on LinkedIn. And so I started really diving into digital marketing, and that changed my career. My first kind of claim to fame was something called the 100 Insurance Questions Answered in 100 Days video series, which is a terrible name, but tells you exactly what I did. Starting in December of 2011, I asked every single customer or person that I ran into, if you could have just one insurance question answered, what would it be? No questions too silly, no too small, too stupid, whatever. And I collected 147 questions. I pared them down to 100. And starting on January 2nd of 2012, I started answering those questions in 2 minutes or less using video and uploading them to YouTube. Quite literally, the first person in the history of the insurance industry to upload videos about insurance to YouTube. And I was like the only one. There were about 50 of those questions that had literally never been answered online before, if like you did a Google search. So that immediately blew up, changed my entire career, right? I mean, today that's like common practice. They ask you answer stuff, but that didn't exist back then. I mean, this is non-HD. It would take 35 minutes to upload a 90-second video to YouTube at the time. Mm-hmm. So, I'm doing this, and it's just quite literally, like I said, never been done. And it changes my career. And, a couple years later, I'm doing 100 to 150 inbound leads a month on less than $100 marketing budget because of all the content, and speaking all over the industry and trying to explain to insurance agents, like, what this process is. Now, frankly, the best part about it is insurance agents are so lazy and so terrible in general at growth that none of them have done it, despite the fact that I've now done it again for another agency in 2020, which I'll get to in a second. So like, I've done this multiple times and still nobody does it. It's crazy. It's the best part about insurance is that our industry is filled with so many C players that if you're even a B player, you will kill it. That's my favorite part.
Yeah. Hey, question.
That goes on, do well there. About 8 years into that part of my career, my brother-in-law at the time comes to me and says, basically, like, your name will never be on the box. I know you're doing well. We don't care. We're never giving you equity in this agency, so you're only ever going to be a producer. At 31 or 32, or whatever age I was, 33, I can't remember, that was completely unacceptable. So I left there. I became the chief marketing officer of TrustedChoice.com. I built the Agency Nation platform. Grew Agency Nation from 0 to more than 500,000 eyeballs in less than 4 years. We put on 2 conferences, Elevate 2017 and Elevate 2018. Elevate 2018 is still probably the greatest conference in the history of the insurance industry. We changed the whole way that insurance events were done. It was narrative-based. It was 2 days. We brought in speakers from outside the industry. It was like a rock concert, but an insurance event. We had 827 people there. It was absolutely phenomenal. And I was fired 6 days later. That's a story for another day, unless you're interested.
I was like, Kev, why didn't we get the invite?
Yeah. So
we hate missing out.
So then I went and became the chief marketing officer for Bold Penguin for 9 months. That was never really a great fit for me. It was okay. Made a lot of money. Didn't particularly care for it. And unfortunately, my brother-in-law, who kind of quasi kicked me out of the agency, he got terminally ill, and I couldn't travel anymore. So my wife asked me to stop traveling, which I did. And Albany is not a bastion of insurance industry opportunities, and her agency did not want me back. So I took the next best thing I could find, which is I became the CEO of a fitness franchise. They had 6 locations. They were local here in Albany. And I'd been working out there for a while. Fitness is a very important part of my life. And the founder of that company came to me and said, "Hey, I'm a gym guy. You're a business guy. I'd love to grow." I grew that business from 2,100 members to over 3,000 members in less than 9 months, put shovels in the ground for 2 new locations, at which point I had made the business so profitable and created such a flywheel for growth that he showed up one day. I mean, the best part about working for a fitness business is you live in Lululemon gear. And part of your job is to work out at a different location with the members at noon every day. It was like heaven to me. Like, I'm surrounded by all these fit, gorgeous people, and I work out every day, and you're wearing sweats to work. And I'm sitting there, waiting in the conference room for our standard 8:30 Monday meeting that I had with the founder. He shows up and he goes, "Ryan, you've done a great job. Really appreciate it, but you're our biggest expense, so you're fired." And terminated me on the spot.
Wow.
His lawyer was obviously sitting next to him, which was the first sign that I was in trouble. But so that's 2019. Walking from there to my truck.
So was that commission based, and they see how many members you're bringing in, and you just made a whole lot more than what they anticipated?
I think he just said, "I don't need him anymore."
Yeah, he's got it figured out now.
He's got me, he was making so much money, he just didn't care.
Yeah.
So, and here's the other thing, people are selfish, and, a lot of people who are successful, especially people who, hit plateaus, are often hit those plateaus because they're incredibly selfish. So it should have been a sign looking back on it. And that's exactly what happened. He used me to grow his company and get past that plateau. Right. And the minute he didn't think he needed me anymore, out the door I went. And it was just like that. I mean, it's just cold hard math. So that's when I started Rogue Risk. I started an independent insurance agency March 9th of 2020. 7 days later, COVID hits, which was a kick. And survived it though. We wrote our first policy. So we started in March, wrote our first policy in May, wrote our third policy in August. But what I was telling you about before we went live, the kind of inbound sales flywheel that I created from August, this is still during COVID, from August of 2020 to April 2022, we grew a revenue from basically zero to 172,000 in small commercial. And what is that, like 20 months? And sold to SIA. SIA is largest, second largest, depending on who you talk to, right, premium aggregator in the country. They bought us, and unfortunately, because of the economy, they shut us down 4 days from whenever we're recording this. So Rogue Risk no longer exists. Here's the really cool part, though. During that time period, I got to see our model really succeed. So while everyone else is about the hard market because they're all wusses and just don't want to do the business the way it should be done, we 3.5x'd our business. We grew from 172,000 to over 700,000 in revenue in small commercial, on a 15-person team. And I'm incredibly proud of the work that my team did. It's regrettable that the company no longer exists. I think the decision was a mistake, but I also understand why they had to do it. As of the recording of this, debt is significantly more expensive than it was prior. And we were one of the smallest companies in their portfolio. So it was an easy way for them to capture some expense. And unfortunately, me and my team had to pay the price. So that's me.
When there's a lot there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Somewhere in there, I did 350 speaking gigs and produced like over 1,000 podcasts too. Wow. So,
and let me just say this real quick. So looked up a couple videos of you before having you on. Dude, I thought the 2017 Elevate conference, the opening, you got to be a Star Wars fan, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
And so he had Star Wars like gifts basically explaining, like it helped explain the emotions when he was speaking on stage, right when he came up. So you have the audience just laughing and like able to kind of, if they've seen Star Wars,
right,
they're like really into it. So it was a different approach. Thought it was really unique and creative.
Yeah. In those conferences, the only speaking I did was the initial kickoff, which I tried to keep under 15 minutes. I think it's super tacky when someone puts a conference on and then puts themselves as the primary keynote speaker at like 11 a.m. on the first day. So all I did was kick the conference off. I just tried to set the tone, and then I stayed out of the way.
Yeah.
So for 2017, in Milwaukee, I did 47 Star Wars gifts. So it was kind of like deadpan humor. Like I'd be talking about something,
it didn't stop.
But then you'd have like the Star Wars gif kind of deadpan behind, that kind of matched what I was saying. And then for 2018, I went a slightly different way. It was a little more serious. It was called Give a Shit was the name of the talk. That's also on YouTube. You can find that one as well. But basically, the whole message there was it's cool to care. I think that there's this odd sense, and you get it around people. I find this a lot with second generation agency owners who didn't actually ever have to grind through the really horrible part of the business to get to the success. You find that they have this like aloof nature, and this is not just agency owners. This is really anyone who comes from a sense of entitlement, but like they have this aloof nature that like really diving in and really caring and taking those big chances somehow is like not doing that is somehow a sign of how successful they are. And the people that I know that are actually doing amazing things and growing, which I'm blessed to know quite a few, they care more than anybody. They wear their emotions on their sleeve. They push hard. They communicate. They're honest, vulnerable, authentic. And my message to the audience was basically like, it's cool to care about all this stuff. It's cool to care about your health. It's cool to care about your spouse, your family, your kids. It's cool to care about your clients, your people, your customers, your brand. Like, we should care about these things, and we should really dive into them and be emotionally attached to them in a healthy way. And so that was the direction I went there.
Yeah, that's awesome. So what is it inside of you, maybe in your upbringing, not to be a classic podcast question, but that give you this drive? I mean, everything it seemed like you touched, like you've, 3, 4, 5, 6x'd it. And
like I came from nothing. I'm from a town of less than 900 people in the middle of nowhere. We used to say you could keep your doors open in our town because the criminals lived there. They didn't steal from there. My house is, growing up, my friends used to refer to my house as the crack house. I mean, it wasn't, but it definitely looked like one. And, every day from the moment that I can really remember, all I thought about is I'm going to do everything I can so that I never have to come back to this place ever again. I knew intrinsically there was something in me that knew that that town was filled with people that I did not want to be. I did not want their life. I didn't want to have life dictated to me the way that everyone I knew's lives were dictated to them. And being that my parents, I'm blessed because I had two parents who loved the shit out of me. So that's the blessing that I got. But in terms of resources, I mean, we weren't like scraping for food, but I didn't go on my first vacation until I was an adult. I didn't go on my first plane ride until I was an adult. Like we didn't go out to dinner. Like, you know what I mean? Like it was green beans and chicken for dinner every night. Like it was just, that's where I came from. And I, whatever, touched by God, whatever you want to say, I had enough insights, enough whatever to say, I don't want this for my life. And the only thing that I could do to escape that was to work my off and to just work harder, smarter, constantly accumulate knowledge, constantly accumulate new skills, constantly accumulate new relationships, like learn how to deal with people in a positive way, in a negative way, learn how to get what I want, learn how to sell, learn how to market. I just wanted all the skills so that, no one could dictate my life to me. Now I have made several mistakes in my biggest mistake in life is that I continue to believe people when they say that they share my vision and drive. And over and over and over again, I've had that thrown in my face. First by my ex-wife's family's agency, then by Trusted Choice and the people at the National Big Eye, then by Bold Penguin, then by the guy that owns this that owned that fitness place, and now by SIA, and all for different reasons. I'm not saying nefarious, right? I'm not saying any of them did anything nefarious. I'm just saying I believed that their goals were the same as my goals, or that they were willing to push as hard, or that they had as much pain tolerance as I have. And that has not been true over and over again. So what I will never do again is work for someone. Work with people 100%. Be a consultant and show people what I know 100%. But ever allow some to have control and dictate my life? Nah. Nope. That will never happen again. This is the last time.
I got something.
I don't know if that answers your question, but
did that answer your question?
I like that, the drive was to not be in the situation that you were in. And it's funny. It reminds me of a story of my dad, and I walk out of the house and he's changing the brakes. He goes, "Come on, son, let me teach you how to change the brakes." And I'm like, "Dad, I'm going to work so hard that I don't have to change my brakes anymore."
Yeah.
And I hopped on my bike and I left.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm not going to change brakes. And I've never changed brakes my whole life.
Yeah.
And,
it's funny, man. Those little moments in your life, I think that what I've come to realize is a lot of people just kind of go through life. They just kind of get through it. They just wake up and they do their thing, and they got the little things that make them happy, but they kind of live in a little foggy, hazy world. And I get that, because life is hard. Bad things happen, it's tough, and there's painful, and you have to have hard conversations, and people don't like you, and someone you like doesn't like you, and there's a million things that happen that make life hard. So we kind of cocoon, or we take a pill, or we smoke a ton of pot, or drink, or we eat a bunch of nasty food. And I understand why people do that. Unfortunately, that's just a hamster wheel, right? You will never see the world. If instead you can have your mind open, you can take things in, you can appreciate little moments like that, which are defining moments. That's a tiny little moment in your life, right? Just speck of a moment.
Yeah.
Which has a very, very, obviously you're willing to bring that story up. That's ingrained in your brain. You are open, you are aware, you are cognizant, and you allowed the moment to sink into you, so that it, in some way, whether consciously or subconsciously, probably most of the time subconsciously, it is a part of who you are. It has become a part of who you are. I am never going to not work hard enough that I got to change my own brakes unless I choose to, right? Maybe someday you're like, you know what? For fun, I'd love to learn this skill. That's fine. Having to change your brakes because you've made a series of decisions that have put you in a position it's your only option, that's a completely different thing. And I think it is really one of the only things that one of the core aspects of our purpose here is to be in control of our own lives, right? Don't not allowing our lives to be, doesn't mean you're going to be able to control every aspect of it. Bad things are going to happen, but we should be working to have autonomy and personal agency. And I don't think we talk about concepts around personal agency enough. But I think they're the core aspects of the people that I see, again, that are successful. Some of my friends, people I just follow, books I read, is that these people, these men and women, they own who they are, and they do not allow life to be dictated to them. And they accept the bad that happens, and they keep going. And that I just don't think most people do that, dude. I think most people just are like, this bad thing happens. Oh, woe is me. I'm going to go eat a cupcake and Netflix and chill and, forget that it happened.
Right.
And, I just can't live that way.
Yeah. Yeah. And, of course, that was just metaphorically. It's like I'm going to do whatever it takes to not be able to do that. So, but, and I think for me, when it changed too, and I totally understand where you're coming from and agree, is I think when I went out for the first time and opened up my first agency in 2007, sounds like exactly when you started, in 2007, and then there's no one to turn to. So then ultimately, like, something bad happens or things aren't going well, it's all on you.
Yeah.
It's all on you to turn it around. And there's no one, I didn't have a manager, I didn't have a boss, I had nobody. And that's when I think, I started to excel in that thought pattern of if it's going to be, it's up to me.
Yeah.
And I'm the one that
Imagine
turn
if,
it around.
imagine this, and this is fantasy, but imagine if, say, at age 16, every American had to start a business. Had to start a business.
Yeah.
You had to start a business at age 16. Just had to. You had to figure something out. You had to have an LLC in your name. And if you didn't make it work, there's some consequence. Okay. Then at age, let's call it 18 or whatever, you had to join the military for 2 years. Doesn't mean you have to go shoot guns, lots of resources, right? If you had to start a business and had to understand the basic finances, product market fit, marketing, sales, design, etc., and you had to understand what it meant to work for something larger than yourself, which, again, I don't want to debate the current state of our society, but in general, the founding principles of this country were that, you had autonomy while at the same time there was a duality to your purpose in the country. It was personal autonomy as well as a commitment to the larger good of the country, right? So,
right.
Again, there's a million little exceptions that you could bring in there and say whatever, but that's a general thing that was trying to be happening. If you had those two ideas, that it's about, I don't make money unless I figure it out, and all the things that go along with that, along with the idea of I'm going to not only work for myself, but work for some sort of greater good at the same time. How successful and driven would our society be, right? I mean, those are the core aspects of what it takes to be successful. And there are people who live their entire lives selfishly for someone else. I can't even imagine what that life must be like. Literally, that is what it would be for me. Is I just selfishly live as a drone for someone else for my entire life. Like, oh my God, I can't even imagine it.
Yeah.
Star Wars reference.
Yeah.
But let me ask you this. There's so many different personality types. And of course, that would be hell for you. It would be hell for me. But for some people, like, they need it, right?
No, I don't believe that for a second.
No?
I think that I don't. I think there are people who do like working in more stable environments. 100% agree with that.
Right.
Not everyone has to be an entrepreneur. And the reason I say start a business, not that you have to take that business to some other level, just the idea of, say, how, like, I mean, and I know, like Jeff, you seem a little younger. I don't know how old you are, but like we in high school, we used to have to pick stocks, like in math, right? You would do this fake stock picking thing, and you'd learn how the markets work, and you'd buy here and this, and you got a basic understanding of this kind of stuff, and you'd pick stocks, like just the action of starting a business, trying to find like an entrepreneurial coursework, although I'd hate for our public school system to teach it because my kids can barely read. But like that kind of stuff, I think everyone should have that core knowledge. From there, you may choose, if you have the knowledge, you may choose to say, you know what I really like to do is play the guitar. Love it. Love to play the guitar. To me, I work a 9 to 5 for someone else because what I want to think about all day is not work. I want to think about my music, or I want to think about my art, or I want to think about this non-for-profit that I really care about, that I work when I'm not doing my job. So my job is just a job. If you're making that decision as a tactical and purposeful utility to serve what it is you actually love doing, God bless you. I completely and utterly understand that. Unfortunately, I think what is more often the case is we are so racked with fear and
insecurities.
Insecurities that we never that is not a conscious decision. We fall into a place, we get to a certain amount of money that allows us to live just comfortable enough, and then we sit there and we pop Percocets or Prozac or Xanax or whatever we need to get through the day, or we drink, or we smoke, or whatever the drug of choice is, and dull ourselves to the world. If you're doing it for a tactical and purposeful reason because your personality is just you don't want to be an entrepreneur, God bless you. Not everyone should be an entrepreneur. I'm not saying that. But I think what worries me more about our society today is we're almost being groomed to give up. We're being groomed to kind of live in this bubble of desensitizing. Like I have hardcore ADHD. I was just diagnosed like when I got divorced, I kind of went on this like self-reflection, self-awareness journey because I didn't see it coming. It's kind of out of the blue. We don't have to get into it, but like it kind of caught me off guard. I'm not a cheater. I'm not an alcoholic. I don't have any debt. You know, pretty decent guy. Like I didn't really understand why I got divorced, but I doesn't matter. I did. So I was kind of like, what's wrong with me? Right? Like why did this happen? And I went and got tested, and the woman didn't even, before she even tested me, she was like, you sure you don't have to take the test? And I was like, so I did anyways. And what's been interesting to find out is that like for me, and there are 40% of the population is neurodivergent. So, it's not as many people actually have ADHD as say they do, but a lot of people do. So I don't feel unique. I'm just saying for someone with ADHD, what I've learned in my research is that we get all of the stimuli all the time.
Oh, yeah.
Constantly. It's always on all the time. There's no way to turn it off. And I thought that I was just crazy. Like I didn't understand that there was ways to do this. So what I started doing was smoking pot as a way to kind of narrow my focus, which works really well, except for the fact that you lose your superpower. Yeah. And this is what I try to do with all the workout videos. I put if anyone follows my Instagram or whatever, they'll see I post videos of myself working out all the time. It is not to show people that I'm not trying to say I'm better than them. I'm not a workout influencer. There are ways of dealing with the stimuli of our world that don't dull our ability to sense it. And that is what I'm trying to show people that I think versus taking a pill, unless you really, really need it. And some people do. I'm not saying some people don't. So take the exceptions out. Talking about the 90% in the middle, right? Instead of dulling ourselves to the world, instead of getting fat and lazy and Netflix and chilling and drinking beer constantly, and I love beers, don't get me wrong. We just have to, just understand the negative impacts that they have on us. Like
not a 12-pack
doing all that
night.
Stuff and dulling ourselves to the world, why not figure out how to take all the inputs in and use them? Like, and that's really been the journey of the last 2 years for me. And what I'll tell you is that it's much harder path. Right. There are days when all I want to do is rip a heater and sit on a couch and just like, oh my God, like I just want to chill. Right. I just want to like turn it all off and hit the reset button. There's certainly days like that. But then the next day I'm not as sharp. I don't have my creativity. I don't have my motivation. It's harder to get cranking. Right. Like I feel like I can't take all the inputs that I normally can take. And I don't like that feeling. Right. Like I love being high and having one input and being able to focus on one thing, but I hate everything else that comes with it. And those are the life choices that we have to make. If you're going to dial into a dulled down version of your life, you're not going to be able to sell more. You're not going to be able to figure out the hard problems in your agency. You're not going to be able to deal with the downturn in the market. You're probably the person right now who's complaining about the hard market instead of growing your business 4X, which is what you should be doing, because now is the easiest time to sell that we've ever had, unless you're maybe on coastal Florida, Louisiana. Some of those places are very, very difficult. But most of the country, you should be dominating right now. It's a hard market. Every customer's antenna is up going, who can help me?
Yeah.
Every
There's always opportunity and disruption.
Insurance customer in the country's antenna right now is looking for a better service provider. You should be dominating. It's hard and it's work, but it's out there. This is where you separate yourself. And I feel like it, not to spend too much time on this, like, dulling your senses thing, but I think it all plays into the same idea. If I have this saying, it's kind of like a life mantra. I'm actually working on a tattoo where I'm gonna put on my body. What you focus on is who you become. If you're a Netflix and chill person, then who you are is a Netflix and chill person. You're not a growth-focused agency owner. You're not a high-achieving sales producer. If you smoke pot once in a while, like I said, ripping one down, good for you. I do the same thing. But like, if you're doing it every day, that's who you are. You're a pothead. You're not a high-achieving salesperson. If you're drinking every night before you go to sleep, you're a boozer. You're not a high-performing salesperson, right? Like what you focus on is who you become. If you're playing video games, 25 minutes of video games, if that's how you relax, it's not how I relax, fine. But if you're playing video games till 2 a.m. and you think you're going to wake up the next day and go crush your sales goals, it's not going to happen, right? So like put it with everything, with your relationship. Yeah. Are you focusing? If you're a dude and you're not coming home and asking your wife, how was your day? What's going on? You know, like, and then when she at you going, that sucks, right? The two most important words for any male partner is that sucks. Right? Just whatever she says, that sucks. I'm sorry. I get it. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. That sucks. Just say that really over and over and over again.
Jeff, you got to.
So like I, you know, to me, what you focus on is what you become. Don't say you're a good spouse if you're not focused on it. Don't say you're a good parent if you're not focused on it, because you're not. And that's the message I try to get out in the world is figure out those things that really matter to you, focus on them, and they will become exactly who you are. But all the other things, they're distractions. And you just have to make those life choices.
Man, I got to get a beer with you, man. This is this is too entertaining. I mean,
you might have to run alongside him at the same time. You guys can do that. You're like,
I mean, he might be more intense than me.
It's debatable.
It's awesome.
I might have had to beat on the ceiling today because Jeff was above me and he's, you know, banging his foot.
Oh, yeah.
And I literally got on my chair from the conference room, was like, boom, boom, boom.
Well, I'm on a demo. The microphone, I'm like shaking, you know, because it's the ground level. It's funny,
I get
dude.
it, man. I get it.
That's awesome. Well, we got a couple minutes left. So what's the future for Ryan Hanley now? Like, what is he looking to get into? How is he going to provide value for agents? What does that look like?
The good news is, you know, as much as I hated Rogue getting shut down, it does open up my ability to start teaching the industry that I love. And look, I give agents a lot of shit, but it's only because I love this industry, you know, and I hope, you know, I always try to come back to this point if people haven't already turned it off. You know,
there it is again.
Couldn't help myself.
Tito, blur it out.
So, you know, this industry, you know, when I say I came from nothing, like, you know, I now live a life that I could have never imagined as a child, right? Like I have more than I need. You know, I do live in an apartment today, but I have a beautiful house that I'm renovating that I'm going to move my kids into. That, like, you know, I'm very, very blessed. And it's because of this amazing industry and what's possible if you work hard within it and the amazing people in it. So, like I said, despite the fact that I did hate that Rogue no longer exists because it was my baby, it does free me up to now teach this industry what I learned there and what I perfected in that space. So, you know, if people want to follow along, which I probably turned off at least 3/4 of your audience, but if you do, I would point you towards two places. One is my website, ryanhanley.com. You can sign up for the newsletter. I have a podcast. There's going to be announcements coming out when I'm ready to start doing some consulting, workshop, speaking, and coursework around what I call the one call close process. And then you can also go to my Instagram, which is where I talk, you know, I talk a lot more about the soft stuff, or what I, you know, like to call the human skills, the leadership skills, the dealing with employees, the, you know, all this craziness that I was, you know, going on about the last 15 minutes or so. Yeah. So if you're into that stuff, Instagram would be the best place. Otherwise, I'd start at my website, ryanhanley.com.
That's awesome.
Awesome, dude.
Cool. Well, hey, thanks a lot. You brought a lot of energy and a lot of great information for our guests. And it was great meeting you, and certainly look forward to continuing our relationship and you know, getting to know each other more.
No, man, you brought real transparency, and that's what our audience, I think, wants. So appreciate you, and good luck to you, man. We'll keep in touch.
Thanks, guys. And, you know, I'll say to the two of you, and I'll say it to everyone listening, like, you know, if anyone ever needs anything, if I can help, reach out, LinkedIn, like Instagram, DMs, whatever. Just reach out. If I can point you in the right direction. I love this space, and I love the people here. And while I do bang on them a lot because there are aspects of our industry that drive me nuts, I'm so willing to help. So please don't take my hyperbolic language to mean that I don't very honestly want to help our industry grow and the people in it.
No, I think it just shows passion.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I take it. It was good.
Awesome.
100%.
Really good. Well, I wish you guys the best of luck,
Hey,
and thanks for having me on.
All right.
Thanks, Ryan.
Good.
Peace.